riding the elevator, and the neighbors were roaming. It's hard to work.
Thank you very much for coming out. Our thanks to Unitron for hosting us. This is a very wonderful space. Timely. There are drinks at the back, so please, there's pizza there, but there are drinks in the fridge and cafe at the back, so please help yourself to those. So thank you to the team for Unitron. I'm very interested actually to hear this evening. I think that Unitron is a startup really in the Kitchener-Waterloo area, Cambridge Kitchener-Waterloo area. And certainly I think through my medtech career, the kind of hearing technology, medtech is not something that really had great exposure to or understanding of. So I think it's very interesting to see what we learn collectively tonight. I think it's also a very international group here, so yeah, I'm fascinated to learn more about this organisation. It's also Better Speech and Hearing Month, so it seems incredibly timely for us to be here. So hence, accordingly, yeah, there's at Unitron Global and Hearing Matters as a hashtag in addition to the ones that you are familiar with that we have ourselves. And then one of the things I wanted to do was to play a very short video, it's about a minute and a half. Through some of these cafes, we appreciate that some of you have been part of this health community for, I don't know, maybe 3 years or so, and others of you are new, or kind of dip in and out occasionally, which is fantastic. So I think over some of the cafes, we will try and not teach you, but help inform you maybe a little bit about what the Hacking Health organisation is in a more kind of global sense, and some of what they're doing. So I thought I'd start off, some of you might have seen this video, but I thought I'd start off by allowing you just to watch this short video sort of promotional clip.
There are different challenges now than what there were, 50 years ago, so we need to adapt.
So let's just run an experiment. Let's bring a bunch of doctors together, a bunch of designers and developers, and see if they can work together in a creative space.
People who probably would have never met each other or come in contact with each other can come into the same place and share ideas and form small teams and build something.
If we don't put the IT people and the healthcare people together, no one's going to know what the ideas are and what's possible.
We're trying to build an app for moms and their families that helps them connect with local resources to help them and their babies stay healthy.
You get to work in a group on something that everybody's passionate about.
And you never really know what's going to come out of an event like Hacking Health, but it's always exciting and surprising.
That's pretty cool. They're working on a new video as well, which will come in due course. Now, I was lucky enough to drive to 6 hours to Ottawa for the Health Innovation Programme kind of hackathon that they had. And they took a little bit of a different take on it, and there's some ideas there that I'm sure we will kind of take forward. So their idea was rather than just do that sort of 48-hour kind of Friday, Saturday, Sunday hackathon, which this was, but they had also kind of preceded it with a series of actually about 6 short workshops, and we've just been a kind of evening like now, or half day, and slowly built up in terms of what that design thinking was, and so that by the time people actually launched into the full hackathon idea, they had a little bit of pre-exposure to it. And then they're actually doing another one, so they've had the hackathon, which was where this photo was taken, and then in the next week or so, they're actually going to do another workshop. So for some of those that won, in terms of how to link with incubators and accelerators and what resources are out there, and yeah, I just thought it was a very, looking really at that sort of go-to-market commercialization approach. But yeah, so that they've evolved this whole kind of hackathon kind of idea into more of a program. So one plug, and then we're going to kind of go on to look at our speakers. So at the end of May, so on May the 30th, we have True North. I think most of you probably now come across that through various communications. But we've been approached and asked if we could do a special Hacking Health Cafe. So we're doing one on May 30th as a special Hacking Health Cafe at the City of Kitchener City Hall. And we have lined up 4 speakers. I'll tell you a bit more about that later. But 4 speakers really is a showcase of kind of the best of health tech in Kitchener-Waterloo. So more later. One final plug before I introduce our first speaker, and that is, if you haven't kind of come across this yet, if you go to hacking-health.ca or just Google Hacking Health, you'll get to the Hacking Health website. And on that Hacking Health website, there is this document, it's a yearbook 2017, and that's a very quick kind of infographic read, and tells you a little bit about, again, Hacking Health, both philosophy and some of the success stories, and also really how international this whole movement really is, which is what I would really refer to it as. So, going to go on, and I'd like to introduce our first speaker tonight. So, our first speaker is Peter DeVries. Peter's here, who is Senior Product Manager at Sonovo Unitron brand. He's going to talk to us about how do you make hearing aids sexy. So very interested. So Peter has been development of Unitron's rechargeable and Bluetooth capable hearing aids. When he's not thinking about how to make hearing aids sexy, he enjoys puttering in a workshop, building things with wood and trying to figure out new uses for his Raspberry Pi devices. So Peter, thank you very much.
Wow, great. Thanks, John, and thanks everybody for coming tonight. Yeah, I wanted to talk about how do we make hearing aids sexy. Maybe that's not the right term for this day and age, but and Sarah from HR is looking at me with a dirty look. But that's I think what we need to look at here. How do we get people to understand that hearing better is going to make their life better? It works out really well that this is Better Speech and Hearing Month, and I'm glad that you guys can come and hear us and talk to us about what we've been doing here at Unitron for 54 years, Galen? Something like that. 52. We've been in the Kitchener-Waterloo area since 1964-ish. I'm the senior project manager here at Unitron. We're part of Sonova. Sonova is the largest hearing healthcare provider in the world. Sonova not only puts together things like hearing aids, but we also do things like this hearing assist system that work in schools and work for institutions that allow them to hear, for people with hearing disabilities or hearing challenges to actually participate better in their life and in society. Over the next little while, you're going to see our branding change. It's going to be branded, we're going to be changing from Unitron as our flagship name on the buildings and so forth over to Sonova. And that's just to show that we're now part of that large group that includes multiple companies, Phonak, AB, which are Advanced Bionics for hearing aids, the Rogers system, which you see here. So that's part of what we do. Connect Hearing and Audionova in Europe are also part of the Sonova group. Yeah, so that's where we got with that. I've been working in electronics and software for around a quarter of a century now. And it seems every time I go to work for a new company or go with a new challenge, the products get smaller and smaller. Before being here at Unitron, I was at BlackBerry doing BlackBerry devices. Before BlackBerry, I was at a company called Scion doing handheld computers. So everything keeps getting smaller and smaller. But each time, the computing power actually is staying about the same as we get that much smaller. At Unitron, I get to use these skills to work on products that directly impact people's lives, make people's lives better. Devices that can make a real difference, not in just the life of the person wearing a hearing aid, but in the life of their entire family, friends and family. Hearing loss, in many cases, takes a long time. You start to slowly lose your hearing. You stop hearing the S's or the H's in people's, in the words. You start missing words here and there. At first, it's the higher frequencies, and as the loss progresses, people start to hear less and less. It can take them even longer to realize that they need to get help. So they've lost their hearing, and then they actually, a lot of the times, need to get pushed into being able to go and get their hearing checked and go to get hearing aids. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a little while later. But imagine what would happen if we waited that long for corrected vision or for help with an appendicitis. Hearing loss can be the same thing. We want to make sure that as people start to insulate themselves into the world, that they actually, or that they start to see themselves being insulated in the world, that they actually start to, or can get help and be part of the world again. So research has been done, and it continues to be done, that shows that hearing loss isolates people, and I mentioned that. But when people start to become more and more isolated, it's showing that more and more that dementia can be a cause of that isolation. So if people can hear better and actually can start to be part of their environment even more, that the cost to healthcare for helping people with dementia and things like that can actually be reduced. If we can avoid isolation simply by improving someone's hearing, imagine how much better their life is going to be. I remember back in school that when you wore glasses, you were made fun of. You were called Four Eyes, or you had your glasses stolen and they were broken. Sorry, I hope this doesn't bring back bad memories for anybody. Today, people are knocking the lenses out of their glasses and wearing them as a fashion statement. How do we do that for hearing aids? Do we promote bionic hearing? Do we give them to a bunch of hipsters and say that this is the next coolest thing and make it a fashion statement? I don't know. There seems to be some stigma about wearing hearing aids. People are worried to be seen as having a disability. The stigma has disappeared from wearing glasses. Can we make it disappear for hearing aids? Let's see what people say are some of the stigmas. They're big and clunky. This is huge, but this is ancient and it's a fake model. But they did used to be huge. This is a US 80, one of the best selling products for Unitron that we've ever had. And someone told me today that if they had a warehouse full of these, they could retire because they're still so popular in the market, especially for musicians. You know, sorry. These big clunky things, I only ever noticed the big clunky ones, the ones that stuck out of your ear. These ones were fit specifically to fit me. They will not fit anyone else in this room. The advances in hearing technology have gone so far that now you can just get them about this size, the size of a jelly bean. Can you see that back there, Chris? This is Moxie now. This was the world's smallest behind-ear hearing aid, and I think it might still be. I'm not 100% sure. But it's one of the ones that we use. Now imagine tucking this behind your ear. No one's going to see it. And maybe that's the problem. The only ones people see are the big clunky ones. And they don't see the really sexy looking little ones. Sorry, Sarah. Maybe you don't want to look old by wearing hearing aids. I was talking to my father-in-law a couple of weekends ago, and we were sitting in my living room just chatting back and forth, having a good discussion, but the noise in the kitchen started to go up, and my kids and my nieces were getting louder and louder. So as we were talking, he kept putting his hand behind his ear and saying, "What was that? Can you tell me again? Repeat what you said?" And working in this industry, I kind of started asking him more about how he handled certain situations. How does he handle discussions at the coffee shop or after church? He said he's having a hard time in those situations, and he's starting to avoid them. He's starting to isolate himself, and he's pulling himself back from the things that he likes to do and the people he likes to be with. He's making excuses as to why he doesn't want to go out. So I suggested, why don't you come into work and have your hearing checked? He said, no way, I don't want to look old. He's 70, and he doesn't want to look old by wearing hearing aids. All right. He has no problem, though, looking like he's 94, putting his hand behind his ear and going, "Hey, I just don't get it. There are also the choruses of, I hear better without them, or I hear so much other stuff that I can't focus on the conversation. They just don't work for me. You know, people hear this, or say this usually just after they take them home and try to wear them for a week or two. I think that kind of stems from all the same root cause. I don't want to get into a deep psychological or neuroscience discussion because I'm an engineering technologist and not a brain scientist. But to get the understanding, we need to know our brains block out a lot of the things we hear. You know, we don't hear our heartbeat, we don't hear ourselves breathing unless we've just gone for a run. Our brains over time stop paying attention to those sounds that they hear all the time. We stop hearing the refrigerator running in the background or the noise from the traffic on the outside when you're in a discussion like this. But when you first put on a pair of hearing aids and then you turn them on after losing some of your hearing, sounds erupt around you. You hear your breathing, you hear the refrigerator running again, you even hear your spouse sipping their coffee. At Unitron, we've developed some algorithms that will slowly help people adjust to this newly rediscovered hearing, but even then, people say it's still too much noise. They won't give their brains time to adjust to the newfound hearing ability. They just give up. They only wear the hearing aids for an hour or two at a time. People don't understand that it can take months for your brain to sort out all of these sounds again and to adjust to your better hearing. Remember, it takes years for people to realize they're losing their hearing, and then years again before they realize that they need hearing help. Do we need to fix some of the algorithms so that they recognize the sound of heartbeats, of people breathing, of just regular noise, and completely cut them out? And then slowly bring them back in so the brain can readjust? Maybe, just maybe, if we get people to realize they need hearing aids earlier, when their hearing is just starting to get worse, before it deteriorates too much, we get them to wear their hearing aids so that they don't get this shock of having everything come around them all of a sudden again. You know, another short story from family, because I like family stories. My brother and I had a short discussion on Mother's Day. We were sitting around just watching the kids run around. He's got 7 kids. And we were joking about what I do for a living a little bit here and there. And then he said to me, you know, when I'm a bit older, I'm going to be a customer of yours. And I said, well, why? He goes, well, right now I'm having problems sometimes hearing, like, talking to one kid when all the others are running around in the area. I said, we all do that. He goes, no, it's not like that. It's really hard to focus on just what they're saying. I asked him why he thinks he needs to wait. He goes, well, it's not bad enough yet. I said, well, if it's not bad enough yet, why don't you get them so that you can get better and you don't have to worry about this or that? He's a police officer. He definitely needs good hearing to do what he does. The final issue we hear about is cost. You know, many people get sticker shock when they're told their hearing aids cost about $2,000 each, sometimes even more. You're probably thinking, wow, that's just incredibly expensive for a piece of plastic that's the size of a jelly bean behind your ear. And yeah, you're probably right, it is quite expensive. But the cost of the hardware is only a small fraction of the actual cost of getting your hearing fixed or getting your hearing improved. When you get fit for hearing aids, you come in and you get your hearing tested. You have to sit in a booth, which costs quite a bit of money to get started. You've got to get all of this equipment that you've got to get going to get your hearing checked and tested. There's Sarah sitting in the back. She's nodding because she's been through this. She's actually trained in how to set this up. But you go in and you get that first check to see how bad your hearing is. Then you get counseled on what you will need and what's going to be best for you. If your hearing is severe to profound, you're actually going to get your ears molded, the inside of your ears molded, so that they can so they take casts and actually make full inserts that go into your ear, so they can actually put more sound into your ear so it doesn't leak out. After that, you go back home, you wait for a couple of weeks. When your new hearing aids come in, you get finally tested, finally fitted, you get retested, everything goes smoothly, you get to hear things better again, you're in a nice quiet room so you don't get all of this crazy noise, you're happy, then you go out into the world. and you wait for a little while, and a couple of weeks later you come back in and you see your hearing healthcare professional one last time, and they do a couple of little tweaks to your hearing, to the fitting, to the actual programming in the hearing aid, and then you go through a few more things, some care bits and pieces, and then maybe a little while later you come back in to get the earwax cleaned out of them because you can't hear well anymore, and they're full of wax, things like that. All of these things are all charged up front, and they are what causes most of the cost in your hearing aid. Maybe, just maybe, we can get the hearing healthcare professionals to break out what their services actually cost. Today, people will pay for service. They don't want to pay for a product, but they will pay for service. So maybe we should get the hearing healthcare professionals to break out what their services actually cost. And when that is shown to people, then we'll maybe be able to get OHIP or other governments to actually pay a little bit more. Currently, they pay about $500 per hearing aid to help out here in Ontario. That's only a quarter of the cost, and that's still prohibitive to a lot of people. So, as we drive all these things up, and maybe we need to break them out, what about if we can take the hearing healthcare professional out? Have you guys seen the Dr. Scholl's, you stand on the thing and it tells you which inserts you should put in your shoes? Maybe we can develop something like that for hearing aids that will self-fit you. You put in a pair of good earphones, you do a couple of things online, and it'll tell you exactly what you need. How many of you guys have heard the Yanny versus Laurel debate that's been going on the last couple of days? Right? Hearing is very subjective. What I hear in a conversation with you is different than what Galen hears, even if he's standing right beside me, because of our biases, because of our upbringing, because of our language differences. If your English isn't your first language, you're going to hear things totally different than what I hear, as English is my first language. And the same thing would happen if I was to go to France and try to listen in French, because I learned Quebec French, not real French. Sorry. So hearing is such a subjective thing that's going to be very, very difficult for us to do something like that self-fitting. We're working on it because the US government has actually mandated over-the-counter hearing aids to be made available for mild to moderate hearing losses. As we go through and do some of that, we're having to get people to fit themselves. And we need to get it good enough that it will help them, but we also need to get it to the point where it will be something that will take them into the hearing healthcare professionals so they will get professionally fitted and professionally worked through. So, what can we do to get people to realize that they need to get hearing health care taken care of earlier? What can we do to reduce the cost or change the cost structure so people see what they're really getting in services and products? What can we do to make people realize that if they hear better at 40, that they'll live better at 70 or 90? How do we make hearing aids as common as eyeglasses? Thanks for your time. I'm really looking forward to hearing what other people have to say. And have a great night and enjoy the rest of the presentations.
Thank you, Peter. Also, but yeah, how can this group help you? So, Peter, you talked about kind of two things in terms of that. Sort of almost early diagnosis and acceptability and also cost and those kind of, but yeah, are there ways in which this group can actually help advocate for the Unitron and the work that you're doing in that kind of hearing matters sphere? Any other questions from kind of people here? Yeah.
You mentioned taking the middleman out, and there's a lot of startups that are trying to make hearables, which are, they market them sometimes as hearing aids, sometimes they market them as just improving your hearing, but you don't need a hearing aid in loud background areas or whatever. Have you looked at that as like they make them obvious that you're wearing these things? They put their company logos on them, they're sexy and all this stuff. And have you looked at making hearing aids that way? A lot of them have failed because they don't quite understand all the audio that goes on.
That's right.
So they have occlusion problems and howling problems and all this kind of stuff. But have you looked at trying to market that way?
Yeah, that's definitely something that we're investigating and looking at. it's a really hard balance too, because we as Unitron don't sell directly to a consumer. We sell to the hearing healthcare professionals. So we have to try and balance how we sell or how we develop things so that we don't alienate our current customer base by trying to bring in a new one. Maybe we work with the hearables and the hearing healthcare professionals so that people can get self-fitted, walk into a hearing healthcare professional, buy the equipment, and walk back out. And if they have problems, then the billing can start to come that way, or maybe they can work that. So yeah, the whole hearable piece is something that we're very closely monitoring and trying to figure out how to fit our product, which is sort of the higher end versus the hearables, which are sort of like the Apple iPods or iBuds.
I've worked with a lot of seniors who are concerned about dementia.
Yeah.
And it seems that in Canada, at least, hearing loss and losing your car seem to be the two things that seniors are the most scared of. And so it seems like the longer they can go, even if they're not even driving anymore, but the longer they can hold on to their license, the better they feel, even if they know that they can't drive, as long as no one's actually taken it from them.
That's right.
And I think they're doing the same thing with hearing, that as long as they can function, they don't want it, because everyone wears glasses now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm 29, but not very many people wear hearing aids until they're old, and so it's become this like anti-milestone.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, and I'm trying to talk a little bit about it, is how do we get the 30 and 40-year-olds to wear their hearing aids because they're already starting to realize they've got hearing loss. We do have quite a few employees here that have severe to profound hearing loss. We even have some that have a moderate hearing loss and wear hearing aids daily. The ones with the moderate hearing loss, the ones that we would want to get earlier and earlier started, you can't tell they're wearing them. The hearing aid itself, if I was to take and, that's a wrong piece. I've got a set here that I've got fit for myself. If I drop this one in my ear and put it behind my ear just quickly, it disappears. You can't see it, even with me having no hair or next to no hair. You can't really see that it's there. The wire disappears unless you're standing or sitting where Galen is, or you know what you're looking for, right? So, and this one isn't even the smallest product. This is a mid-sized product for us right now. And they
But I don't know if it's other people seeing them. I think it's them saying, I don't want to need it. Like, I'm young still. I don't need a hearing aid. It's not even that other people can see it, it's that they know.
Well, I'm young still, I don't need glasses. I'm young still, I don't need glasses. Well, that's changed. That's, Doug, I think it was you or someone or other mentioned that, you know, eye care professionals have made glasses sexy. That's why I titled the project, you know, or the talk, how do we make hearing aids sexy? How do we go out on a big marketing push to show who really wears hearing aids, or those that, and younger people that are wearing hearing aids?
But the stigma's being removed from eyeglasses.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, people want eyeglasses because it makes them look smarter.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
What if you partnered with a high-end sound company like Bose or Sennheiser, who make earbuds, and right here into the 20s and 30s market right there?
Yeah.
Sennheiser is actually part of a large corporation that has a hearing aid division.
Yeah.
So there is collaboration.
There is some collaboration there, and so Sennheiser is one, yeah, but Bose or...
Because instantly it's sexy.
Yeah. And working with some of our partners, they're working with Bose as well on a sleep aid, which is basically, it looks like the in-ear hearing aid that goes in your ear. It's relatively soft, and it basically goes in and blocks out a lot of the noise if you have a hard time with this. But I also see people that do it when they have issues with people chewing, so they can actually block out some of that noise so that it doesn't bother them when their husband or wife is sitting next to them chewing on something really loud.
I find it quite kind of interesting that the headphones have gone miniature, smaller, and yet now we're kind of back with kind of these kind of, just your total ear covering huge headphones.
It's a quality thing. A lot of the times with the headphones, it's a quality thing. You get really tinny, horrible sound out of the earbuds, and then the big, massive ones, you can actually get some really good quality sound.
But it's a fashion thing too.
And it's fashion. Beats has made it a fashion thing. Maybe we'll make a set of headphone, like the big Sennheiser size,
Peter, thank you very much. A very great introduction for that.